Coming live from Palm Beach, Florida, USA is our guest this evening. Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have
Hi.
Sinead Acevedo, podcast coach and founder of Her Voice Hub, a podcast production agency dedicated to helping others share the stories with the world. Welcome to the show, Sinead.
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 Hi,
Yeah,
Jay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to join your audience today.
great to have you, Sinead. And we'll be talking about how we can use podcast as a marketing tool. So,
Mm-hmm.
straight way to the question about podcasts. Now, uh, how do we tell marketers, marketing agencies who are used to the traditional methods of uh, doing their marketing and using traditional marketing tools, how do we tell them exactly, and especially from the uh, position of from the side of small businesses, freelancers, big
Mm-hmm.
agencies already know, big companies already know. How do we tell them what exactly is a podcast? Now they have heard about it. Several have not even heard about it. But then
Mm-hmm.
how can they use it as a marketing tool? How is it usable as a marketing tool? Help them understand purely from a
Okay.
the way you deal with your
Yeah,
clients.
yeah, of course. So basically, podcasting is one of those secret gems because a lot of people they would either go to YouTube, they either write a book, and they do those traditional marketing tools. But podcasting is not a saturated market. It's not like any of those other platforms. That's what makes it so unique. But what makes it even more unique is how it can be utilized as an all-in-one marketing tool. Now, for me, I believe podcasting is storytelling. So if you think of storytelling, it's been there since the beginning of time, since the Stone Age. They've been writing little graphics on, and that's exactly what podcasting is. Now, if you, like me, a small business owner, podcasting is your go to because not only is it very affordable or even free, you can just jump on YouTube and speak your speak, but by utilizing it correctly, you can generate so many leads and sales. And what I use is what I call a podcast funnel. So if you have, for instance, you've heard of any kind of funnel, you've got your audience on top there and you funnel them down into being a client. Now, how podcasting do this is by the big three. So you're building a personal connection with your audience, which is a big, and that instantly builds trust. So it's like listening to one of your best friends' conversation. So you have that awesome connection. And what that leads to is higher conversion rates, which we all want. So what I usually suggest is by having a call to action. Even if you don't have an established business yet, I would say do some kind of call to action, whether that's follow me on Instagram, give sign up for my newsletter, grab this awesome free checklist I add below, just that way. So you are building some kind of traction, right? So even if you don't even have a business yet and you're thinking of starting one, podcasting is definitely the go to because, like I said, it's that building trust, building a personal connection, and those two together is higher conversion rates. So I hope that answers your question briefly because we can really dig into how you can start creating content for your podcast and so forth if you don't have one. But yes, pretty much a podcast is a gold mine for anyone who, especially small business, but even people who are running agencies of 50 to 100 employees. They already know the power of podcasting. We should just take the benefit a bit more from our side.
Right, Sinead. In terms of now, a lot of people who know about podcasting and even small businesses know about podcasting. how the big challenge is that being used to traditional marketing tools, they don't know how to incorporate podcast into their scheme of things. How do they incorporate podcasting as a marketing tool into the system? How
Mhm.
can they understand it? How they can make it a part of their system? Any
Mhm.
other marketing tool is easy for them because they know about it since long, but
Mhm.
podcasting involves creating something from outside. So either it has to be somebody creating podcast from outside, or internally they have to create a podcast. Then there are
Mhm.
other things attached to it. So what would you tell them, how they can easily incorporate it, and how they can go about setting one for themselves rather than just going guesting on other podcasts and renting their audience?
Yeah, of course. So, what I believe is you or whatever business you're in, you're creating some kind of content, and that can be very, very exhausting. You probably find yourself on Instagram, then Facebook, and you're going all over the place. But for instance, just look at AJ. He's got his podcast and he's sharing it everywhere. And that's where you should pretty much start. You should start off with not just the podcast, but record it face to face. Even if you have the camera like set on the side, but video content is key. So by creating that content that you would originally do for any other platform to gain traction, to gain some kind of marketing, I would say start with the podcast. Because when you start with a podcast, you won't need to think of what am I going to send out for my email newsletter? How am I going to build ads? How am I going to build a lead magnet? Those things all will come from your podcast. So even if you have just guests on your show, you will be delivering some kind of valuable content on your show. And what I usually do is I take the podcast and then we multiply it. So if we've got video, you've got a video for all those social platforms. You've got reels, you've got TikToks, all of those things. Then you've got your audio, so you can create audiograms. You've got your text, so that's the transcript of your podcast, which then just multiplies to social media graphics. We've got even ads, and those could create blogs and then broken down further into newsletters. So if you start off by coming up with, I'd say, five main topics for your podcast that's related to your business. It could be the how, when, where, what, and why. You can start off with those. And then if you have guests on your show, they can touch on each of those topics. But you would want them to be aligned. So if your um, podcast is, for instance, for me, it would be motherhood. And then you've got organic, you've got eating, childcare, all those things. But you still got your main topic where yours is business and marketing. So you really want to stay aligned. You don't want to jump on one day and talk about pizza that's got nothing related, because you're not going to keep your audience engaged. So I would say before you even go to any of those other marketing tools, just rethink what your business goals are. And when you come up with those topics, you can align it with your next big launch. Say now you have a book launch coming up. You could say, okay, in 6 months, I'm launching my book. I can get authors or maybe other people related to that field to come up to my show, and we can build up that excitement through the podcast, because this is audio and people feel audio. They feel that emotion. So when you have that content, video, especially, you can just multiply it or outsource it to someone who can just multiply it for you. So you're not going and creating tens of different types of marketing techniques, but instead you have your podcast, which could also be an advertisement. You could cut a piece out which is very inspiring and be like, grab this and you can sign up for my free challenge. So ways of gaining audience is so awesome through a podcast, because like I said, that personal connection. And it's not as hard as it seems. You can just grab your earphones, your phone has a recording device, and you can just speak when you feel the most motivated and empowered to speak about your message and your voice. So, like I said, you can do it for free. And if you just start off with something basic, it's going to be a little cringy in the beginning because you're going to be like, my voice sounds weird, or like, did I say that right? Did I make sense, or did I just blab, So really, you can start off for free, and just repurposing is the key to going forth and marketing yourself. Because if you just implement it as a normal cycle into your business, it really becomes the core. So whatever thing you have coming up for your business, you implement it into your podcast. And if it's in your podcast, it's going to your newsletter, it's going to your blog, it's going to your website, it's increasing your SEO, your visibility. Marketing just pretty much comes organically instead of having to pay for it, because you just amplifying the whole website and Google with your name.
Right, right, Sinead. And while you were talking, you were also talking about pizzas, and it reminds me, that why you are talking about it, because you have been a qualified chef for 10 years,
Yes.
and then you then and born and raised in South Africa, and now the founder of Her Wife's Club and residing in the USA, and so just let us understand things as podcasting exactly from that point of view. How did a chef come to become a podcast production agency owner? This way a lot of people will understand how podcasts can be a great career for a lot of independent people who are looking at, as
Mhm.
provider of content, and also as providing their podcast as a marketing tool to all the businesses, consultants, and others who are looking for a viable platform, a great platform for using as their marketing say tool as such.
Mhm.
So please tell us, how did it start? How did it come, and what are you telling your client? What are the sort of people who are coming as clients, and what do they want from you? This way people will get a lot of answers rather than me asking questions in a
Okay,
different
yeah,
way.
sure. So I love answering that question because, when you leave school, you're told you need to go study, you need to get a degree, you need to get a job, and that's it. That's the rest of your life, right? So I did those things, and honestly, I love the hospitality industry. It has that thrive, it has that drive.
Right,
But when I was about 8 months pregnant, I was still working in a hot, hot kitchen and shoveling coals and making fire. It's a hard industry. Um, so I decided, okay, well, it's time that I go my own direction and I go to the online industry. And when I went into the online industry, it's very overwhelming. There's a lot going on, and a lot of people trying to make you jump for this offer and that offer and try to tell you this is the right way. But you honestly have to really feel this. But it is so possible for anyone to just transition from like 10-year career into a total new career. And that's when podcasting really lit up to me, because I saw a lot of people, especially after the pandemic, they were utilizing podcasting just to reach out to people, just to speak about their business, but they weren't really implementing it in their business like effectively. So I went then, I niche down into podcasting. And um, what I believe is that you not only utilize it as a marketing tool, but you evolve as yourself personally as well, right? You get to find your own voice. And I feel like a lot of us, we forget our voice sometimes because we get so overwhelmed with life itself. You got to pay
right,
bills, you have to look after the kids, you have to do all these things. And in the end of the day, if you ask, who are you? Do you feel aligned with the message you're giving, with the business that you're working? Do you really feel that connection? And that's where I thought podcasting is really so powerful. And that's the beauty of it, is that anyone can utilize it and anyone can share their specific message, because there will be someone who's listening to you. Even if it's 5 people or 500 people every day, that one person is going to share it and their life is going to change. by listening to whatever message you've delivered, even if it came unexpectedly. So, um, yeah, the journey really shows that anyone can make a transition into another business, even if you did go and study or you did not. The doors are always open. You're never too old to try something new or go a different direction, even though the older you get, the scarier it gets, especially with dependencies. But the doors are open. You're the only one who is going to decide if you're going to take the next step. And like I said, if you are able to take that step, it's worth speaking about because you've just made a move that maybe someone else hasn't had the guts to do. So that's going to empower more of your audience and inspire them to be part of your community. And going back to your podcast guesting, I really do believe that by owning your own podcast is such a great benefit because this aligns with your business. You can link it to your socials and you can have amazing guests on your own show as well. So, for instance, I have a podcast called Podcast Secrets, and we speak about all the strategies of podcasting, but I get to collaborate with people who are in the industry. Those are freelancers, those are people who are starting up their business or maybe even have an agency. So you really get to collaborate with people from all over the world, which is so amazing how podcasting brings people together, and you get to build those ongoing connections. So if you have someone on your podcast, you can then say, I would love to return the favor. Let's do a virtual event together. Or how about you do a guest blog on my, so you kind of share your backlinks, and this way everyone is getting something amazing in return.
Right, Sinead. Right. It's such a wonderful story. I'm still thinking about how uh, you created that space for yourself, and it's such a inspiring story and a
Yeah.
real story. It's not a made
Yes.
up story. And
Oh no, it's
it
100%
will
real.
give that message. India is a big country, though it's a global podcast and it goes to a lot of places. But you see, even from Indian point of view, it's a big country, huge number of people in workforce, and a lot of people are all in different spheres of life trying to find their voice.
Hmm.
And even our homemakers, so many of them are so talented for their families, for other stuff. They have become part of that whole process of day, of that routine, that they almost forget who they are. As you
Hmm.
said, you almost forget who you are. And such
Yes.
messages give them a chance about through podcasting that they can find their own voice. You
Hmm.
can do podcast every 15 days, every week, even a month, but at least there is something, and that is the way people will know you, who you are, and you can share your inner thoughts, who you are exactly, through a podcast. And for that, you don't need to go anywhere. The world
Yeah.
is open, the doors are open, the windows are open,
Yes.
and the air and ideas will freely flow. And that is the message I like the most about, that you had the courage to find your voice. And a lot of people, that is where I said I will not be able to ask the best through my questions. It is your story which will be able to answer all the questions that the audience would want to know. So
Hmm.
today, this thing has come out wonderfully that ways. Now, a lot of people who are trying to find their voice and also to find a way towards, as you said, you loved hospitality industry, but it needed your presence all the time.
Hmm.
But something which is online helps you decide your routine. That's the great big great
Hmm.
stuff about being online. So a lot of people who want to go online find something for themselves. Podcasting can be one thing, and they can earn money out of it. How do they do that? Somebody who does not know anything about it, how do they do that? Is it that they hear that podcasts are everywhere, online, offline, everywhere? So is it a too much of a crowded market for them? What would you tell them if they feel it that way?
Okay, so firstly, podcasting is one of the unsaturated markets. So you have YouTube, which has billions and billions of people on. Yet you are still findable. There's still ways of monetizing it. But podcasting, there's a lot of people that might start a podcast, but for them to go past the fifth episode, it doesn't usually happen. So for those that actually go past the fifth episode, congratulations. You made it to the next quarter. But no, so podcasting is not saturated at all. You can definitely still stand out with your message. And there's actually a lot of people that don't know what podcasting is in the first fact. So it's really educating people on what podcasting is. And a great way to do that is by putting your video on YouTube as well. So this way, people, they know what YouTube is, they know it's a video. But by having a podcast, it's an audio which you can listen to, you can download, you can go for a drive or walk, and you can just listen to the audio like you would for your music. Now, ways to monetize this is very, very exciting, because I've actually had clients who got sponsored before they even launched their podcast, and they had a small audience of about, I'd say, 700 people on Instagram, but it was really reaching out. So the first I would suggest is sponsorship. Now, the way you can get your podcast sponsored is by doing a little bit of research and seeing which podcasts are being sponsored by your preferred sponsors. Not, if you don't know who your preferred sponsors are, firstly, I would say have a look in hardware, software to start off with. What does your business use right now? Or what do you use right now? Is it, for instance, a StreamYard? Is that something you utilize in your business? Or is it a type of microphone like I have right here, Shure mic? Or is it I don't know, I have glasses. Whatever, whatever you utilize in your daily basis, reach out to those people and really tell them how they could benefit from being a sponsor on your show. Now, what a sponsor is could be a 10 to 30-second ad where you speak about their product, or just an introduction. It could be starting off the show by, "This show is sponsored by," and then you give the name with a cute little description. But if you put it in the middle, it will probably be like a minute long, where you speak a little bit more. And how you can sell this to your preferred sponsors is by giving them an outline of who your audience is, like your demographics, the age, the area they live in, what they like, what they listen to. That way, your preferred sponsors will get to know, okay, yes, this is my ideal audience as well, and I'd like to reach them. Then you can give them your price slot. So I'm going to give this in US dollars. Now, if you do an intro, outro, this is like a 10 to 15 second, and you say, okay, for the next 6 months, I'll do you in every like second episode. I do a bi-weekly episode or so forth. And this will be between $20 to $35 for per episode. Then if you do a one in the middle, like a minute long episode, this can go up to $60. Really, it even more depending on how your podcast grows. But we're looking at before you even launch a podcast. So um, those are great ways to lock in slots, and your audience can get used to you speaking about your preferred sponsor within your show. Now, if you already have a podcast and you want to do sponsorships in the future, but you haven't yet found a sponsor, you can start speaking about products and services that you like and you enjoy. That way, your audience can get used to the new flow that you are implementing into the podcast. So that is one way, is through sponsorship. Now, there are a few other ways. um my affiliates, that's another one. So you can get affiliates. You can also do premium content. So a lot of the platforms, um like Patreon, they have a way that you can give your free content, and then for more advanced, or maybe a bit more of a private, like a live session, you can get someone to pay you like a monthly subscription, and that could be anywhere from $2 to $15 to $20 on your site. And I think you can do that with YouTube as well, and even Facebook groups, you can implement some kind of subscription that they can start utilizing. Now, for me, I find those are great ways to start off monetizing. And then later on, you can really go into other ways of monetizing. But really, to start off, I would say definitely sponsorship is number one. And then doing premium content if you already have some kind of established market.
Right, right, Sinead. And before that, before sponsorship, first they have to start somewhere. And many
Yes.
people think that they don't have a great voice. So what would you tell them before, if that is the hassle for them to start their podcast journey?
Yeah. So I would say a lot of people when they start, they don't like their voice. You say if you can hear your recording, and you might get the guts to record, and then you spend like 5 hours editing because your voice sounds so weird. So you try to make it, and you end up sounding like a robot. Now, it's really getting over that hurdle. It's going to be about 3, maybe even 10 episodes that you record. And the thing is that the more you believe in yourself, the more you feel aligned with your message, and you have a clear message of what your business is, what your goals are. Why are you starting a podcast? Is it to gain client attraction? Is it to impact a whole new audience? Or is it to just elevate people around you? So, really figure out what your goal is. And the more clear you are on your goal, the more power you're going to put in your voice, and the more you're going to show up for your podcast as well. Because if that goal is vague and it seems to change every day, your audience isn't going to know what you're talking about. They're not going to know when you're going to show up. It's like a TV series that you watch. Say now you watch your story every Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. You know they're going to be there. It's not like they're not going to show up. But you know what the storyline is about, and that's why you enjoy it. So what I suggest is stabilize your goal first, and then before you even start, think of what your favorite story is on TV or your favorite movie, and how does that relate to your emotions? Is it a suspense? Is it excitement? How do you feel? Do you get sad at the end? Do you get like relieved at the end? What emotions do you feel throughout the show? And then see how you can implement those emotions into your podcast. So, do you start off with a pain point? Does social media overwhelm you? You're like, oh yes, it does. It's so relatable. Maybe that's something. And then you go through your episode. You can jot down a few things. I wouldn't suggest reading your entire podcast. Just to keep it a bit more natural, you can do like a outline of what you'd like to speak about. And then while you speak, maybe you can see how you can play around with it. See how you can add in those emotions that you yourself enjoy during those movies that you watch. And then at the end, how do you want your audience to feel? Do you want them to feel that, like, wow, that was so inspiring, or wow, that was so insightful? And then see if your voice really fits with that more than your voice sounding good to your ears, because we all sound different in our head, in on microphone, on the TV. But it's not about the sound, it's about the message and how you felt after you delivered that message. Because if you think of your audience, you're speaking to that one person. You're not speaking to 5 million people that might be listening to your podcast. But just think, it's just you and I, AJ. It's We are having a discussion. And if that person that I would ideally want to meet up with is on the other side listening to that, I'm speaking to you.
Right.
You can do it, right? So it's just getting clear on that goal, feeling those emotions and representing it into your podcast, and then being able to deliver the story in that flow as well.
Right, Sinead. Right. I think you have uh, explained all the nitty gritties and uh, problem areas of creating a podcast, and especially for businesses, how they can integrate podcast as a marketing tool into their present marketing efforts.
Mm.
Now, coming to your company, Her Voice Hub. It's a nice name, I must say. Relating to finding your voice and Her
Yes,
Voice Hub.
definitely.
So, is it only for you cater to uh, women podcasters, or is it like that, or what is it? What does it mean exactly? And the reason I asked is, how can people connect with you? Who can connect with you?
hmm So the majority of the entrepreneurs I work with are females, although Her Voice Hub actually came from me, finding my voice, and it's a community for other people to find their voices as well. And so that way, I have worked with a few males as well, especially coming from a male industry. And but for me, it's really being able for anyone who wants to find their voice, wants to utilize that voice as a marketing tool so they don't feel burnt out, so they don't feel tired doing all these other nitty gritty things, which might not feel that important to them, but it's important for their business. Now, for me on socials, I can be found everywhere on Her Voice Hub, whether that's Instagram, YouTube, the list goes on. But mostly I'm on Instagram at Her Voice Hub. So that's my main point of contact. But yeah, it's Her Voice Hub all over.
Right, right. So, any of you people who want to find your voice, or have decided to, you know, get into podcasting and find your true voice, you can connect with Sinead, and she will guide you all along. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much for joining us, Sinead.
Thank you.